Hey guys, my name is Ingideus. Today I have a special guest with me.
I'm Clareity, the third place finisher at the previous tournament.
And I thought that we'd have a little bit of a video here to help you guys prepare for the next tournament on May 12th, the Southeast Asia, Oceania, Shadowverse Open, Dawnbreak Nightedge Take 2 Cup. We'll have Clareity here draft a deck, talk us through his decision making, and we'll play one game and see how we do. All right, and here we are about to start the Take 2 draft with Clareity. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Using your treasure trove of rupees.
150, it's kind of expensive.
So out of these three classes, which one do you think is the best to win you a tournament?
So personally, I think Bloodcraft is the best, but my personal favorite to draft is probably Forest. So I'd probably just go with Forest instead.
Right. Just pick what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah, because if you're not comfortable with something and you try to play it, you probably just do worse, right?
Especially since Take 2, you have to play with a lot of unfamiliar cards.
A lot of randomness as well.
So you need to make sure that you're familiar with all the mechanics and the archetypes of the class.
Exactly. So the first two options on the left, White Vanara and Magical Fairy Elect versus Sun and Moon and Fairy Driver, right? So here I'd probably lean towards the left side, mostly because these cards require less synergy on the whole.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think that the Moon and Sun has a lot of value in Take 2 though, right? Because it just keeps repeating itself and it's hard to deal with unless they have a banish effect.
That is true, but the Fairy Driver is kind of not very useful unless you get the synergy. So I value two independently good cards against one conditional card and one really good card.
Oh, that's fair.
Okay, so we just take the Magical Fairy Lilac here.
And of course in Take 2 it's harder to put together cards that revolve around synergies just because you don't really have any control over what your deck is going to look like at the end, right?
I'm obviously going to regret that choice a bit here because I'm immediately offered a Weird Philosopher, which gives me the Fairy synergy, which was missing from the Fairy Driver.
And Leafman also a very strong pick.
Exactly, so much better than the Flower Princess and the Tweedledum Tweedledee. So I'll probably just take these two.
Makes sense to me. And for these two, you prefer the Duller Blade, the Crimson Bow. What's your thought process for this one?
So this is a pretty interesting pick because the Dollar Blade Demon is independently better. The Wingman is independently better. The Elf Song tends to be a pretty strong card in Take 2. But the Crimson Bow Elf is a card which is not so good. So the question in Take 2 is always, do I value one strong card and one weak card versus two okay-ish solid cards, right? And early on in the draft, it's usually correct to pick cards which are independently strong. So early on in the draft, since we're still like only 4 cards in, I think we take the Dollar Blade Demon and the Furious Elder Weedman.
Right, that makes sense, because if you pick the synergy cards near to the end, you can sort of see what your deck already has, and then you can actually start tailoring that. But like early on, you have no idea what you're going to get in the future, so it's better to take the cards that are individually the strongest.
Yep. So here I have a pretty easy choice. Kindly Treant isn't very fantastic, especially because, you know, you need neutral cards to activate the Kindly Treant
And in Take 2, you're actually offered less neutral cards overall, right? You're offered more class cards in general.
So given that the synergy is likely not going to go off, you just take the independently good cards, which is a 1-drop and a 2-drop. Probably just going to not play them for their effect, but it's fine anyway.
Makes sense to me.
And immediately after that, I'm offered a bunch of neutral cards, so clearly taunting me for not taking the Kindly Treant.
So what do you think here? More card draw or just followers?
Card draw is never a bad thing in Take 2, but Knight's Way is not the kind of card draw you're actually looking for in Take 2 because tempo is very important, right? And you always want to play minions on curve.
It's a lot better in Take 2 than it is in Constructed, but yeah, tempo is pretty important.
Especially because I don't really have enough 2-drops just yet, so I think I take the Happy Pick into the Angelic Knight.
Right, so that's an interesting consideration. Like, at what point in your draft would you start taking a closer look at the curve and making sure that it's all balanced out?
I think you would do that about halfway into the deck building. Right now it's still kind of early, so you just take the most independently useful things to fill out your deck, I think.
I mean, you can't really complain about Happy Pick and Angelic Knight either way.
Yeah, they're both decent cards.
Pretty good. You picked the Wood of Brambles, I think. I mean, I would.
This is a very interesting pick, right? Because Elf Singer Harmony is just actively bad for you. But Wood of Brambles is such a game-winning card in Take 2 that you almost want to pick it, even if you have to pick an Elf Singer Harmony.
It's, again, one of those parts where on one side you have one that's super good and also super bad. On the other side you have two cards that are like better, right?
Yeah. So I think Wood of Brambles is just so good that you pick it always, even if you're offered something like Mystic Ring even. So I think we just take the Wood of Brambles.
I tend to agree, actually.
And you know, go hallelujah.
Wood of Brambles is such a powerful card for Forestcraft. One of the most important cards in the entire class, I would say.
So here I'm offered Wood of Bramble synergy with the Starry Elf, or I can take the Fairy Whisperer. So Flower of Fairies is card draw, but it's not very fantastic, especially because Sylvan Justice here is removal, and Forest tends to not have good removal options, so I tend to favor the Starry Elf, especially because I already have Amulet synergy.
Right, and the Flower of Fairies works best with something like Rhinoceros in Unlimited.
Yep.
Right. And in Take 2, your evolution points are so important, so if you can remove an enemy follower without having to spend one, that's valuable.
Exactly. So here I'm offered the Goblin Mount Ogre and Snow Whitecat Sage versus Actress Farrier and Knight's Way. So here it's actually a pretty easy pick in my opinion, mostly because I've gotten almost halfway through the draft and I should really start thinking about filling out my curve, right? So I have quite a bit of early game, but I'm lacking quite a bit of late game.
0 5 drops.
Exactly. And Knight's Way is card draw, but Snow Whitecat Sage draws me a card as well. So
and it buffs something.
Exactly. So I think here there's no competition because Snow Whitecat Sage is both card draw and a minion and fills out my curve.
Right. And it's not a tempo loss like Knight's Way is.
Exactly. So here I'm offered Feeder, the Gentle Elf, and Eperia versus Grasshopper Conductor and Starry Elf. So here's where we need to kind of look at the deck we've drafted so far, right? And we find that we only have one Amulet so far, and we already have one Starry Elf. So unless I am pre-cognizant, right, and know that I'm going to draft more Amulets, this Starry Elf might just end up being dead weight. So I think here, given the considerations of things like the curve we already have, we just pick the Eperia.
But how valuable do you think it is in any single game to always be able to draw your Wood of Brambles?
It's really hard to say, especially in Take 2, because there are situations in Take 2 where Wood of Brambles is not that great of a card.
Right.
Yep.
You can't build your deck around it like you can in Constructed.
Exactly. So you have to give more weight to cards which are better even without synergy. And Eperia is one of those cards.
Eperia, a very strong pick. One thing I found that when I'm drafting Take 2 decks sometimes is that I focus so much on the early game that I end up not having enough late, and then I sort of fizzle out if my opponent drags out the game long enough, and then I just don't have enough resources that are individually strong, like you've been saying, to carry the game through. So I like that Eperia pick there. So
here we have very interesting options, right? Like what we always come back to. One good card, one bad card versus two cards which are so-so.
Oh, I would insta-pick the Lion Champion, and Treasure Map is just fun, so that's the pick that I would pick.
I actually tend to agree with you here because even though Treasure Map is a bad card, it's not always absolutely terrible. It sometimes gives you good stuff if you're really lucky. So
I like it because it's also a curve filler, and in Take 2 you can't optimize your deck as you could in Constructed, so if you just have a curve filler to play and then maybe get some additional value, it's not too bad.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Lion's Champion is just so good.
The Lion Champion is just absolutely insane in Take 2.
Yep, Singapore represent.
I know you're the player here, but I would just pick the Lion Champion.
Singapore represent, right, Lions? So Starry Elf and Flower Princess against Fairy Whisperer and Grasshopper Conductor. So
being offered Grasshopper Conductor a lot, I just don't think it's very valuable in Take 2 because of such a weak stat line, right?
It's definitely not the best, especially because it puts an extra mental strain on the player. In a constructed deck, and you're running Grasshopper Conductor, you kind of already know what you're trying to fetch with it.
You can tutor something specific.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna remember all 30 cards in this deck.
Right, true.
I'm definitely not gonna remember what 2 attack minions I have, what 1 attack minions I have.
Right.
So the odds of me, when I take this card and I want to play it, it's gonna be very difficult to get the value that I want out of it. Unfortunately though, as we have previously debated, right, the Starry Elf is not fantastic because I only have 1 Amulet. And Flower Princess, unlikely to proc the neutral synergy. So I think we just take the Conductor and hope it just gives me something that I want. And I mean,
in the end, it's still a card draw, right? So it's not too bad.
It's not too bad, yeah. And Fairy Whisperer is pretty good, so we just take that. So Forest Whispers, Snowfield Warrior against Dollarblade Demon and Crimson Bow Elf. So all of these cards are fairly close to mediocre.
What I always say, my catchphrase when I do Take 2, is I always say hashtag it has rush. If it has rush, then I usually pick it. So the Snowfield Warrior and the Forest Whispers, and it helps that Forest Whispers is just straight up removal as well.
Yep.
Potentially a big threat.
Yes, earlier commented, right? Forest doesn't have the best removal options, so I think we definitely just take the double force here. So thankfully we're getting some late game, right? Because our deck is pretty early curving, but we don't really have that much late game just yet. So the option is between Rampaging Mammoth Rapunzel versus Knight's Way and the Gigas. So here, my first instincts would be to go for the cards on the left side. Mostly because Rapunzel synergy is very difficult to pull off in Take 2. It's mostly just a 3-drop which does absolutely nothing. Rampaging Mammoth and Gigas have fairly similar power levels, in that both of them need an evolve point to be really good. But Rapunzel is just flat out worse than Knight's Way, so I think we just take this based on Knight's Way being slightly better than the Rapunzel.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Knight's Way just potential additional card draw, and for me, my Rampaging Mammoth never hits the targets that I want it to hit, so I would just pick the Gigas here.
So something against the Rampaging Mammoth.
Yeah, I have a personal vendetta against the Rampaging Mammoth. That'd be dumb.
So here we are offered more low-costing drops, unfortunately, not what we're looking for.
It is one of the hallmarks of Forestcraft, though.
Yep. Here, the quality of the cards on the right is just not as good as the cards on the left.
Yeah.
Leafman is a 2-drop, but it is also a 5-drop.
Right.
So if you think about it that way, I think looking at the curve, you just take the Leafman because we need more late game.
And the Fairy Whisperer can also just generate extra resources, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Tweedledum, Tweedledee doesn't exactly have any synergy with the deck. We actually don't have any cards, right? Which synergize with playing more stuff. So I think we just take these two.
And the final pick.
Ooh. So the Ferry Driver, which we abandoned in the first pick, has come back. Offering us a second chance to repent.
I think this is the White Venara pick, right? The Elfton's Assault might go off. It's better than the Fairy Torrent, which usually doesn't do anything. And the White Venara is also just like an independently really good card as well.
The thing about that is that if you take the White Venara, you have to take the Elf Twins Assault. And how many neutral cards does this deck have, right? It has Gigas, Lion's Champion 2, 3, 4, 5.
Snowfield Warrior is a Forestcraft follower.
Okay, so that's 4, right? 4. So we have 5 neutrals, right? So it's quite likely that Elf Twins Assault might actually just do 0 damage.
But I think it's almost certainly that Fairy Torrent will do nothing as well.
We have a Brambles, right? We have a Wood of Brambles, so I think we pray that we draw the Fairy Torrent with the Wood of Brambles.
You think so? Okay.
Oh, you can. Okay, it's not that bad, right? You can bounce back Leafman. You can bounce back your Elf Singer Harmony if it's stuck on the board. You can bounce back Lilac, get the Clash effect again. You can bounce back things for card draw. You can bounce back the Imperial to give it ambush. You can bounce back the Grasshopper Conductor to get more card draw. You know, I think it's more likely to go off than the Elf Twins Assault. And we do have a lot of Fairy generators. We have 2 Fairy Whisperers, 1 Water Fairy, 1 Sylvan Justice, Wood of Brambles, 1 Weird Philosopher. So I think we do have enough Fairy synergy to warrant taking the Fairy Driver.
Alright then, well let's go with the left. You're the player here. Okay. If I was good at Take 2, I would be competing on May 12th.
Maybe you should. So let's just get into match 1. The one and only match that we'll be playing today. As you can see, I played a lot of Forestcraft, already maxed out in levels. So better to pick classes that you're familiar with, especially in Take 2 when you're forced to deal with unfamiliar synergies and things like that.
Right, the more things that you can control, the more things that you're familiar with, the class mechanics, the cards, and the better it is for you in an unfamiliar environment. Right?
Definitely.
So against Bloodcraft, what do you think the matchup is like here?
So Bloodcraft is actually, I remember saying earlier that Bloodcraft is actually one of the best Take 2 classes. The reasoning is that your opponent always wants to play around Vengeance, but they have no idea exactly what Vengeance synergies you have in your deck. So it makes it extremely frustrating and difficult to play around in that way.
Because you have to push lethal, but at the same time you don't want to play right into Dark General out of nowhere, right?
Exactly. So here I don't think we keep the Knight's Wave, we just keep the Elf Singer Harmony.
Too much of a tempo loss, you think, in the early game?
Yeah, you're just looking for minions early on. So Elf Singer Harmony is actually best as a 2-drop. It gets worse progressively as the game goes on. So I think it's fine. Brambles is just...
It's just good.
It's just good, so we just keep it. Yep. Okay, that's
Not
much
bad.
better.
That's a curve right there.
Curve.
Going second. So what do you think is better in Take 2? As a pro player, going first or going second, which one do you like to see when you're playing Take 2?
I actually think going second in Take 2 is better.
Just more resources?
Yeah. Take 2 games tend to lack game closers, because unlike in rotation, you can't reliably draft game enders or have the synergies to play the game enders, right? So if a game goes longer and longer, having the extra evolve point usually goes quite far.
Right, it's a lot of value, right?
Exactly. So here I actually have a bit of a conundrum, in that if I play the Elf Singer Harmony, I am potentially locked out of playing a minion on the next turn, which is actually kind of problematic. So right away I already have quite difficult turns ahead of me.
So just a Fairy Whisperer, you think?
The problem with the Fairy Whisper here is that it gets traded away by one of the
Right.
forest bats, so I actually lose a board. So I actually want to play this, but I don't want to play this.
So you play it and then hope that he trades both bats into it. It's
But
the
if he
ideal scenario.
That's the ideal scenario, yes. But what if he doesn't, right? Then
Snarling Chains is in the opponent's hand every time.
You think so? But then again, like what I said, right? Elf Singer Harmony gets worse progressively as the game goes on. So if I ever want to play it, it has to be now.
Go for it.
YOLO. Right? So we live in this world where he will trade his forest bats in. That's what I truly believe.
You're very optimistic.
He believes, right? He believes. I mean, or he plays a 3-drop, right? And I can trade in the Elf Singer Harmony into his 3-drops, and that's not so bad in that case.
What I say?
Wow!
What I say?
Wow! What a profit.
Caster Blessing. Every time.
Oh. So am I gonna win this or lose this?
We'll see. Play your cards right, you might win. So what do you think here? Goblin Mount Demon or the... Goblin Mount Ogre or the Wood of Brambles plus a Fairy? The Brambles is problematic for the Forest Bats.
I actually think you don't play the Brambles here just yet. If you're gonna develop the Brambles, you want to do so while you already have bought. So I think actually you just develop the Fairy Whisperer plus a Fairy from the Fairy Whisperer.
Going wide.
Yeah, even if he makes a trade, you don't mind so much. You're not extracting maximum value, but the Brambles later on can be even better.
So you're not really too worried about your defense total right now.
Yeah,
against
like I mentioned,
Bloodcraft.
right, in Take 2, burst damage is kind of rare, so you
Right.
can afford to lose health points. You hope here that he gets greedy, right? I mean, who plays around Wood of Brambles in Take 2? Ha 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 ha.
I mean, it is a silver card. It's not that uncommon, right?
Famous last words! So
You're playing with fire here, Clarity.
he's definitely going to regret not playing around the Wood of Brambles as I take all the value trades
Free trade.
in the world. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and you have your Evolve as well. Now, in Take 2, I find that usually it's the best to conserve your evolution points. So, do you think it's necessary here to use one or just pass?
So here there are a few interesting ways that I can close out this game. One school of thought here with this particular hand is that I have a perfect curve in Leaf Man on the next turn into Dollarblade Demon, and it's very difficult for a class like Blood to recover from that kind of scenario,
Right.
especially in Take 2. So one school of thought is I just go in with the Evolve point, next turn I play the Leaf Man and I just really just snowball out there,
Right.
which is actually quite likely to happen. So it's actually not so big of a risk here because I have 3 Evolve points.
Okay.
So no matter what I do, I will still be able to match these Evolve points 1 for 1, even if I spend 1 point here aggressively, right?
I like that line of play. So you clear the Singer, and then next turn it's most likely that the Bloodcraft player can only clear 1 follower, and then you can just play the Leaf Man out.
Exactly. So this is the advantage of going second in Take 2.
You get your evolution points first.
Yep, you can play your Evo point first, you can afford to use 1 point aggressively, and then your last 2 points you can still hold on to them a bit, you know, try to use them to answer your opponent's plays. If I was going first, I definitely wouldn't have the luxury of making such a play, because you start with less Evolve points in your opponent. So here he's definitely forced, right, to do this. And he might take a value trade, which is kind of greedy if you ask me. So let's see what he'll do. Okay, so he take that. Yes, he wants to push the 1 damage to face, but he realizes that he needs to race a bit.
So what does that tell you about the opponent's deck? Do you think he drafted a particularly aggressive build? If he's trying to raise damage this early on?
It's quite likely. So here, the Leaf Man is just so good, right?
Yeah.
Like
Buff the entire board,
protects it more importantly.
go aggressive.
Yeah. The question here is whether I think in an Evolve point, right?
So this lines up perfectly to protect against, for example, a potential reach of the Archdemon.
Yep, something like that. The question here is whether I find it worth to blow in an Evolve point. And I think the answer here is probably not. The reason being that you don't actually want to set Blood. You don't want them to be able to enable their vengeance too easy.
Right.
So if I had Evolved and hit his face, he'd be at 14.
Because a lot of the Bloodcraft cards deal 2 damage to
themselves.
Yeah.
So if you played something like Spiderweb Imp or Razorry Claw or even Snarling Chains, again, he will be
Right.
able to set himself back
So
down.
here, without evolving, you put them at 13, which makes it a lot harder for them to enable. So for example, they can't play a 2 damage dealer and then Dark General or something.
Look at that Leaf Man value. Look at that Leaf Man value.
Yeah.
So here he's definitely gonna evolve. Oh wow, he's so greedy.
Not evolving. But the Brambles is gone.
Which means my board is now open to being cleared by his minions. So here I think it's where we actually go for a change of pace, right? The Dollarblade Demon is really good, but the clash effect now really doesn't get me much value.
Right.
So I think we play minions which are independently good. So we play the Goblin Mount Ogre. and then we make 2 plays here, and then we just, once again, right, like doing this play and making some trades and holding on to our evolve point, it sets him at 11, so he still has to play a card to set himself down into Vengeance phase. So against Blood, you often want to make these plays just so that they absolutely like can't get value off of Vengeance.
Right. And with Forestcraft, they have less comeback mechanics. Like there's not like as many rushes as in Swordcraft, for example. So saving the evolution points is actually quite valuable in Take 2.
Exactly. So here, he definitely still has to feel threatened because he's falling very low, right? 11, you can see here he's going for a defensive kind of move.
And forced to evolve here, otherwise he's going to be in big trouble.
So gonna trade in, he's gonna go 4. Ooh, 7 Justice is a huge draw. So here I have some interesting options, right? I can wield Philosopher to buff up one of the fairies, trade it in, and then 7 Justice it, drop the last fairies. Probably gonna be the play here. The question, as always, is do I or do I not set him into Vengeance phase, right? Because this trade is always gonna happen.
For me, I usually like to conserve my evolution points as much as possible in Take 2. Just because I find that the later it goes on, the more valuable we get. But in this case, the Bloodcraft already doesn't have any evolution points left. So, like, what do you think about the evolution point economy when your opponent already doesn't have any? Is it like easier to spend yours, or the opponent doesn't have any to react back?
It actually really depends on your hand and what you think you're gonna evolve. So I'm definitely spending at least 1 evolve point on the Dawnbreak Demon, right? So that's cost 1. So I like to have extra evolve points, you know, just like just in case I'm that kind of player, you know.
And the Dawnbreak Demon gets so much value here too, with that clash effect.
So here we are definitely rewarded for not playing the Dawnbreak Demon earlier.
Getting paid dividends for saving up this evolution point.
Alright. Maybe I should switch from being a music teacher to an investment banker. Seem to be doing pretty well, meeting dividends here. I'm just gonna trade the fairy, and I think here, yeah, he actually set himself into Vengeance phase earlier. So I think, actually I might do a double take.
You're getting that play?
I have 2-turn lethal anyway, right? And he doesn't have any evolve points, so there's really no reason to just set him down. Like if the Dawnbreak Demon dies, I don't have lethal anyway, so I think it's still correct to just put him at 11.
So what are you playing around here? Bloodcraft at 9 in Take 2.
There's that demonic, what's that 9 drop? That thing which never sees play in rotation.
Diabolus
Pasama. Yep, that guy, yeah. So that's a thing. That's actually a thing in Take 2.
And here you go. This is something that the opponent's being punished for, not saving his evolution point for the Fairy Demon.
Yep, so if he had the evolution point, he'd be able to run it into the Dawnbreak Demon, right?
And also restore some defense, right?
So here we go for the BM Evolve for maximum damage. Okay, we gotta do this correctly.
You could have saved that evolution point straight to the next game, but just concede.
Okay, so that's 1 game down, only 4 more to go. How far do you think this deck will do in this?
Well, with you piloting it, it could go pretty far. That was pretty impressive. I like the way you explained all those plays there. It made a lot of sense to me. And that was a Take 2 draft and game. Thank you so much, Clareity, for taking us through that.
Yeah, before everything, I have to first apologize to Cerberus over there because I didn't pick her in the draft. But that was a ton of fun.
And good luck, man, on the coming tournament, May 12th, Take 2. Are you ready?
Yeah, I definitely need the luck as well.
And if you guys want to join and watch and know all the details, make sure to check out shadowverseopen.com for all the details on the coming tournament. Again, that's May 12th, the Southeast Asia, Oceania, Shadowverse Open, Dawnbreak, Nightedge, Take 2 Cup. I've been Ingideus. You can find me at twitch.tv at Ingideus and Twitter and YouTube at IngideusLP.
I'm Clareity. You can find me on Twitter at CLDW92 or twitch.tv/Clareity.
That's it from us, and I'll see you next time.